My brother stood up before the turkey was even carved. Forks froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. He tapped his glass like he was delivering a royal decree and announced, loud enough for the entire table to hear, "Mom and Dad are giving me the entire family business. And he pointed straight at me, gets nothing." Gasps rippled down the table. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face went completely still. My brother smirked, soaking it in. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. Instead, I lifted my wine glass, took a slow sip, placed it down with a soft click, and looked directly at my father. "Should I tell them now?" I asked quietly. "Or do you want to?" Every head snapped toward him. His hand trembled. His fork slipped from his fingers. My brother's smile vanished. And as I slowly rose from my chair, no one breathed. The dining room felt suddenly too small, too warm, too crowded. 20 pairs of eyes bounced between my father's shaking hands and my brother's smug, expectant face, as if he'd already won, as if the announcement he'd just dropped was the grand finale of his perfect night. He leaned back in his chair like a king claiming his throne. "Well," he said loudly. "Go on, Dad. Tell her. Tell everyone." My father didn't move. His gaze stayed locked on me, pleading silently. But my brother didn't notice, or didn't care. He stood again, raising his glass with a theatrical flourish. "I mean, let's not drag it out. It's simple. I get the business. She gets nothing. It's only fair, right?" He turned to the guests. "Right." Whispers broke out instantly. I could feel all of them studying my face, waiting for a meltdown, a scream, a tear, anything. Instead, I rested my palms calmly on the linen tablecloth and watched my brother. He took my silence as weakness. "You know," he continued, pacing dramatically behind his chair, "she was never really cut out for leadership. She doesn't have the discipline, or the drive, or the loyalty." He snickered. "Not like me." My mother winced. My father whispered under his breath, "Please stop." But my brother only grew louder. "And honestly," he said, "I'm tired of pretending she's even been involved these last few months. She hasn't done anything. I've been carrying everything alone. Isn't that right, Dad?" My father swallowed hard. He couldn't answer. He wouldn't answer. The silence he offered was louder than any confession. I breathed in slowly and finally lifted my eyes to meet my brother's. He froze mid-smirk, just for a second, at the look I gave him. A look I'd never given him before. A look that made his confidence falter. Across the table, my father whispered, barely audible, "Please, not here." My brother laughed, mistaking my father's desperation for support. "See? Even he knows it. Let's not ruin Thanksgiving with dramatics, okay?" I tilted my head. "Dramatics?" I repeated softly. He shrugged. "Well, yeah. I just wanted to, make things official. Everyone should hear it. Family deserves transparency." His words echoed back at him with a sting he didn't recognize. I let the silence stretch before answering. "Transparency," I said. "Great idea." His eyebrows pulled together. My chair slid back as I stood from the table. Slowly, deliberately. The guests leaned forward. My father shut his eyes. And my brother's voice dropped to a shaky whisper. What are you doing?" I smiled without warmth. "Starting," I said, "with you." My brother straightened, trying to look unfazed, but the twitch in his jaw gave him away. "This is ridiculous," he said loudly, addressing the room instead of me. "She's just upset. She does this, gets emotional, makes scenes. Don't let her ruin the occasion." I stayed silent. And silence, in that moment, was louder than anything he could say. He shifted his weight, forcing another laugh. "Come on, let's sit down, eat, relax. Dad, tell her. Tell everyone I'm taking over. Let's end this nonsense." My father didn't even look at him. That alone made several relatives exchange uneasy glances. My brother's confidence cracked again. "Dad," he repeated, softer now. "Back me up." Still nothing. So he turned back to me, grasping for superiority again. "See? He agrees. You've been, struggling. Everyone knows it." I stepped up. "That's why the business is mine. That's how life works." "Oh," I said. "Is that how life works?" His nostrils flared. "Don't start."
but I already had.
I reached down beside my chair and lifted a neatly folded document from my handbag, thick paper, official letterhead, sealed at the top. A collective murmur rippled through the table.
My brother's face blanched.
"Where did you get that?"
He snapped immediately, voice tight.
I held it by the corner, letting it sway slightly. "I thought," I said calmly, "tonight would be a good night for transparency, remember?" My father exhaled sharply, like he'd been punched. My brother lunged forward, reaching across the table.
"Give me that." I pulled it back before he could touch it. He nearly knocked over the cranberry sauce.
Gasps erupted around the room.
I kept my voice low, controlled. "Sit down."
For the first time in our lives, he obeyed instantly. He sank into his chair, eyes glued to the envelope as if it were a ticking bomb.
"What is that?" he demanded. I tapped the top of the document once.
"The audit." A hush fell so heavy it felt physical. His fiancée, seated beside him, slowly turned her head toward him, her expression twisting with confusion and a flicker of fear.
"Audit," she whispered. He shook his head quickly. No, she's lying.
"It's nothing."
"It's." "Then you won't mind if I open it," I said.
His breath hitched. My mother whispered, "Please, don't."
I ignored her. My fingers slid beneath the seal. The room shrank.
Everyone leaned closer.
My brother's knuckles turned white around his glass.
He whispered, "You don't know what you're doing." I smiled, cold, steady. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing." And as I broke the seal with a soft, deliberate tear,
he stopped breathing.
The tear of the seal sliced through the silence like a blade. My brother lurched forward again, but my father actually snapped.
"Sit down."
It was the first time he'd raised his voice all night. My brother froze mid-reach, lowering himself slowly, eyes locked on the envelope as if it might detonate. I slid the papers out but didn't reveal the contents.
"Not yet."
The guests leaned in unconsciously, forks hovering midair, breaths held, bodies tense.
My brother swallowed hard.
"You're bluffing." I set the envelope beside my plate, untouched, like bait. "You think I'd bring something I couldn't prove?"
I asked softly.
A murmur passed through the relatives sitting at the far end of the table.
My aunt clutched her husband's arm. My cousin leaned so far forward his chair nearly tipped. My brother tried to laugh, but the sound cracked. "This is pathetic. You're jealous."
"You can't handle that. Mom and Dad trust me more."
"Trust you?"
I repeated. Interesting word.
His fiancée shifted uncomfortably.
"What does that mean?"
My brother shot her a glare. "It means nothing."
"Don't listen to her."
I tapped the stack of documents once with my fingertip.
"Everything changed yesterday."
The words landed like a thunderclap. My mother stiffened. My father's head dropped into his hands. My brother's eyes widened.
"What do you mean yesterday? What happened yesterday?" I didn't answer. Instead, I kept my voice calm, controlled. "You wanted transparency. I'm providing it."
He shook his head violently.
"Dad, tell her to stop. Tell her she's wrong."
But my father didn't lift his head.
That silence, his silence, hit my brother harder than anything I'd said so far.
He stood abruptly. "This is insane."
"You're ruining Thanksgiving." I let him rant, watching him unravel.
"You always do this. You turn things into drama just to get attention."
"You're making a fool of yourself."
"Am I?"
I asked.
He stopped.
I picked up the envelope again, letting the papers slide slightly so the top page became visible to the people closest to me, but still hidden from him. A wave of shock rolled through the table.
People covered their mouths.
One person whispered, "Oh my God." My brother's entire body tensed.
"What is that?"
"Let me see it."
"Not yet," I said.
His fiancée leaned closer to me, eyes wide, voice shaking. Is that real?"
I nodded once.
My mother whispered,
trembling, "Please, don't do this. Not tonight." I finally looked directly at her.
"I didn't start this, Mom. He did."
My brother's voice broke. "What did you find?" he whispered.
I held the page up between two fingers, letting the light catch the bold black text. And his world, the world he'd bragged about 5 minutes earlier, began to crack. My brother stared at the page like it might leap out and strangle him. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. Then, Desperation breaking through, he lunged across the table again. "Give me that." I pulled the paper back calmly, not even flinching. His fingers scraped the tablecloth, knocking over a gravy boat. Hot liquid spilled across the polished wood, dripping onto the floor like a dark stain spreading through the night. Gasps erupted. Someone shouted his name. But I didn't move. "Sit down," I said quietly. There was no anger in my voice. Just authority. And it shook him more than yelling ever could. He sank back into his chair, trembling, breath shallow. His fiancée looked between us, panic rising. "What's going on? What is that paper?" My brother snapped at her. "It's nothing. Stay out of it." I raised my eyebrows. "You really want her to stay out of it?" A hush fell. She turned fully toward him. "What does she mean?" He clenched his jaw but didn't answer. So I placed a second envelope on the table, this one smaller, thicker, bound tightly at the top. The room shifted. Even the candles seemed to flicker harder. My brother's eyes locked onto the envelope like it was a death sentence. What is that?" he whispered. I tapped it once. "You know exactly what it is." His face drained of color. His fiancée leaned forward. "Where did you get that?" I answered before he could lie. "His office." Her head snapped toward him. "Your office? What was in your office?" He shook his head violently. "Nothing." She broke in. "She's obsessed. She's making stuff up." I tilted my head. "Is that the story you're going with?" His breathing turned ragged. My mother whispered, "Please stop. Please. This isn't the place." "This is exactly the place," I replied. "He chose this table to humiliate me. It's only fair that truth gets a seat here too." My brother slammed his fist into the table. Silverware jumped. A plate cracked. I said, "Give me that." "No." One word. Ice cold. His fiancée grabbed his arm. "Why are you acting like this? What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," he shouted. "She's twisting things. Dad, tell her." My father still hadn't lifted his head. That silence shattered whatever hope my brother had left. I lifted the second envelope slowly. Every eye followed it. My brother whispered, voice breaking, "Please, don't." And that was the moment everyone at the table realized. He wasn't afraid of lies. He was terrified of the truth. I held the second envelope between my fingers, letting the weight of it settle over the table like storm clouds gathering overhead. My brother tried to steady his breathing, but every inhale sounded like it scraped against broken glass. "You don't understand," he said, voice cracking. "You're misreading everything. You're twisting it." "I haven't even opened it yet," I said calmly. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Guests sat frozen, spoons halfway to their mouths, eyes wide. The only sound was the faint hum of the heating vent and my brother's uneven breaths. His fiancée whispered, "Why are you so scared of a piece of paper?" "I'm not scared," he snapped, too fast, too loud, too desperate. I gently placed the first document, the audit, back on the table and slid the second envelope beside it. The two sat there innocently, but the table felt like a battlefield. "Let's make this simple," I said. "We'll start with what we already know." "We don't know anything," he hissed. "There's nothing to know." But his trembling hands told a different story. I opened the first envelope again, carefully revealing only the top page. The relatives nearest to me gasped, the kind of sharp, involuntary sound you make when you see something you wish you hadn't. Across the table, my brother's knee jerked under him. "What did you show them?" he demanded. His voice broke on the last word. "Relax," I said. "This is just the first page." He shook his head. No, you don't understand. That's taken out of context. It's all explainable." "So explain it," I said. He opened his mouth, then closed it. No words came out. His fiancée placed her hand slowly on the table. "Explain what?" she asked, voice trembling. My brother looked at her like a trapped animal. "It's nothing. Trust me." Her hand slipped away. I turned to my mother. Her eyes glistened with tears, her fingers twisting the napkin in her lap. "You didn't know what he did this morning, did you?" I asked softly. My father groaned, quiet, heavy, defeated. He buried his face in his hands again. My mother's breath hitched. What happened this morning?" My brother stared at me, pleading silently. His face had lost every trace of arrogance.
All that remained was panic. I tapped the first document lightly. "This is yesterday," I said. Then I tapped the second envelope.
"This is today."
My brother's body visibly jolted.
He gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned bone white.
"What did you find?" his fiancée whispered.
"Everything," I replied.
The room gasped as I slid a fingertip beneath the seal of the second envelope. And paused.
My brother's lips parted in a silent, desperate plea.
But I didn't open it. Not yet. I wanted him to feel the moment before the drop.
My brother's eyes darted wildly around the table, searching for an escape, a lifeline, anyone who might save him from what he knew was coming.
No one moved.
The air felt thick, heavy, waiting for the next blow. I slid the second envelope slightly closer to me, but didn't open it.
Not yet.
The anticipation alone was destroying him.
He swallowed hard.
"Listen, whatever you think you found, it's not what it looks like."
"That's strange," I replied softly, "because it looked exactly like what it is." His jaw clenched.
"Stop being vague.
Just say it."
"Oh, I will," I said. "But let's start with something simple."
I tapped the audit again.
"You know the loan, right?" A twitch crossed his expression. "And the missing money?"
The twitch deepened.
"And the forged signatures?"
Gasps erupted around the room. My mother covered her mouth.
My father squeezed his eyes shut, as if hoping the world would disappear.
My brother shot up from his chair.
"That's a lie. All of it."
I raised a single eyebrow. "Sit down." He dropped back into his seat as if his legs had given out.
His fiancée stared at him, horror creeping slowly across her face. "Forged, what?"
"Nothing," he barked.
"She's making things up."
"I haven't said anything, yet," I replied.
His fiancée turned to me, voice shaking. Is that why the warehouse manager called you yesterday?" My brother whipped toward her. "What warehouse manager?"
But he wasn't fast enough. She pressed her trembling lips together.
"He said something was off. Something about documents missing, and a shipment that never arrived."
My brother slammed his palm onto the table. "Why would you tell her that?" She flinched.
He immediately reached for her hand as if to undo the damage. "Baby, I didn't mean."
She pulled her hand away. Her voice was quieter now.
"Is this about the warehouse incident?" The entire room exhaled at once. My brother's mouth opened, but nothing came out.
I stepped forward slightly. "Funny," I said. "You didn't mention the warehouse to your parents. Or to the accountant. Or to the board."
"I didn't tell anyone because it's not important," he yelled. "Really?"
I asked.
"Because the police report thinks it's very important."
He went perfectly still.
My mother shook her head slowly, disbelief etched in every line of her face.
"Police?" she whispered. His fiancée recoiled.
"Police? What police?" My brother stared at me, pupils blown wide with fear. "You're bluffing," he whispered. I leaned closer, voice low enough that the entire table leaned in. "If I'm bluffing?"
I tapped the second envelope.
"Why are you shaking?"
The room froze again, suspended on the edge of the next truth he couldn't outrun.
The word police detonated in the room like a grenade.
Chairs scraped. Forks clattered. A toddler at the far end started crying.
But no one moved to comfort him. Every adult was locked onto my brother, watching his face drain of every last drop of color.
His fiancée backed away from him so sharply her chair nearly tipped.
"You said the warehouse thing was just a paperwork mix-up," she whispered. "You said it was nothing."
He forced out a laugh that sounded painfully hollow.
"It is nothing. She's twisting things. She's always twisting things." I stepped toward him, the second envelope still untouched in my hand. "If it's nothing," I said softly, "why did the detective ask for a follow-up statement this morning?"
His entire body jolted. My mother gasped. "Detective? Oh God." He slammed both hands onto the table. "She's lying."
"There is no detective, there is no investigation."
"Interesting," I replied, because I spoke to him at 9:14 a.m. My brother's pupils contracted like a cornered animal's.
His fiancée turned to him again, voice trembling. "What statement? What follow-up?"
He didn't answer.
Instead, he stood abruptly, grabbing her wrist. "We're leaving." But the moment he tried to pull her away from the table,
I blocked the doorway.
The entire room went silent again. If you walk out, I said lightly, I open this envelope.
It wasn't a threat. It was a guarantee. He froze mid-step. His fiancée wrenched her arm out of his grip.
Why wouldn't you want her to open it? What's in there? He shook his head, frantic.
Don't listen to her.
She's trying to ruin Thanksgiving. You already ruined Thanksgiving, she snapped. Now answer me.
But he couldn't. His silence spoke louder than anything I could have revealed.
I lifted the envelope and set it gently back on the table, letting the sound echo, a soft, devastating thud.
My father rubbed his temples.
We were going to tell you after dinner, he muttered, barely audible.
Tell us what? My mother demanded.
My brother spun toward him, betrayed.
Dad, don't.
Don't say anything.
But it was too late. They are going to find out anyway, my father whispered. My brother looked like he might collapse. His fiancée staggered backward.
Find out, what?
I slid the envelope an inch toward the center of the table.
If you won't tell her, I said quietly, I will. My brother shook his head violently, tears forming in the corners of his eyes.
Please, he whispered.
Please don't do this.
But I didn't look at him. I looked at his fiancée.
You asked what the warehouse incident was, I said.
She nodded shakily.
The short version.
I tapped the envelope.
He didn't just hide what happened.
I leaned in. He caused it. And the room exploded into chaos.
The moment the words he caused it left my mouth, the room snapped.
Voices rose. Chairs screeched.
Guests stood, crowding closer, trying to hear, trying to understand. My brother staggered backward like he'd been struck, palms pressed flat against the wall as if holding himself upright. His fiancée stared at him, shaking her head in disbelief. You caused it? You told me it was an accident, a misunderstanding.
It was, he shouted. She's twisting everything.
I lifted a single sheet from the second envelope, not the whole stack, just one page, and placed it on the table where everyone could see.
I still didn't reveal the details.
But the company letterhead and the bold black title were enough.
Gasps scattered across the room.
My brother lunged again, but his father grabbed his arm this time, firm, unshaking.
Stop, my father said quietly.
Just stop.
My brother froze. He looked at our father, horrified.
You're taking her side?
Seriously? Hers.
My father's voice was rough, defeated. You promised me you would fix this before anyone found out.
A stunned silence fell. Heads turned. Eyes widened. His fiancée staggered back like she'd been physically shoved. You knew, she whispered to my father.
How long?
But he didn't answer. He didn't need to.
My brother's entire facade collapsed in a single breath.
He pointed at me, voice ragged.
This is your fault.
You snooped. You dug where you shouldn't have.
I placed another sheet on the table, unopened, unread, but its presence alone tightened every throat in the room. If it was nothing, I said softly, why are there 6 statements?
He blinked rapidly.
Statements. And 3 witness interviews. Interviews. And a report from the insurance investigator.
That one nearly made him fall.
You weren't supposed to see any of that, he whispered. His fiancée pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. Interviews with who? She demanded.
About what?
What did you do?
He didn't answer.
Instead, he collapsed into the nearest chair, gripping his hair in both hands. I didn't mean for it to happen, he muttered. I didn't mean. My mother cried out. What didn't you mean?
What did you do? I closed the file gently. No theatrics. No raised voice. Just truth.
He didn't just cause the warehouse incident, I said. He tried to cover it up.
Gasps erupted again. My brother's breathing turned frantic, almost animalistic.
You don't understand, he choked. If you say it out loud, if you tell them, I'm ruined. I held his gaze, and didn't say a single word, because he already knew. This was only the beginning. My brother's confession hung in the air like smoke from a fire no one had noticed until the whole house was already burning. He sat hunched over, gripping his hair, rocking slightly, as if motion alone could rewind the night. Around him, relatives whispered frantically.
He caused it.
He covered it up. Oh dear God.
I didn't speak. Not yet.
I lifted the second envelope again, letting the papers shift just enough that those closest to me caught glimpses of headers, signatures, stamps, proof that couldn't be dismissed as jealousy or drama. My brother flinched every time a page moved. Finally, he lifted his head, eyes red, voice hoarse. "You don't know the whole story." "Then tell it," I said. He swallowed. I didn't plan for anything to happen. It was supposed to be a simple shipment. They weren't supposed to be there. A tremor passed through the room. "Who?" his fiancée whispered. He looked away. "The workers."
My mother gasped so loudly everyone turned toward her. I stayed silent. My brother pressed his palms to his eyes. I panicked.
If anyone found out the shortcuts I took, the money I moved, I'd lose everything.
So I fixed the paperwork.
Adjusted a few numbers.
Forged signatures, I said quietly. He flinched.
I didn't have a choice.
You always have a choice, I replied.
His fiancée stepped forward, voice trembling. You told me the warehouse fire was just an accident. That no one was hurt.
It was an accident, he shouted. And no one was hurt.
That's not what the report says,
I said. His entire body jerked.
What report?
I pulled a page halfway out of the envelope. The room leaned closer.
No, he whispered. No, that can't be. Dad, tell her that report isn't real.
My father's voice cracked.
It's real.
My brother stared at him. Betrayed. Broken. You knew, he croaked. My father closed his eyes.
That's why we asked you to come early today, he said.
We wanted to talk.
We wanted to fix this privately.
Fix, my brother echoed.
You think this can be fixed?
He laughed, a raw, hysterical sound. I'm done, he said. You can't prove anything.
None of this is admissible.
The audit isn't finished.
The investigators don't have enough.
Maybe, I said.
But everyone here now knows enough.
The room went completely silent.
My brother scanned the faces around him. Family, friends, people who once admired him, now recoiling like he was something contagious.
His voice dropped to a whisper.
What else did you find? I lifted the final page in the stack, still hidden, still unread. You really want the rest?
I asked. He nodded weakly.
I leaned in, voice low enough to make the entire table inch closer. This is only half.
His breath stalled.
And the other half, he whispered.
I let the suspense hang.
Just long enough. The other half. The words seemed to echo against the walls, bouncing between shocked faces and trembling hands. My brother stared at me like a man waiting for a firing squad to take aim. I didn't speak. Instead, I slowly placed the last page on the table, face down, letting the gesture alone thicken the air until breathing felt optional. My brother's fiancée reached for it with shaking fingers, but he grabbed her wrist.
Don't, he whispered.
Please, don't. She yanked her hand away, revulsion spreading across her face.
What are you hiding from me? From your own family?
Nothing, he snapped. She's lying. She's always been jealous. She's always trying to take what's mine.
Take. I repeated softly.
Or expose. His breath hitched, but he pushed forward, desperation dripping from every word. She's framing me.
She probably forged those documents herself.
Everyone knows she hates me. The room erupted with whispers of disbelief. I raised my hand once, and silence returned instantly. Then, without breaking eye contact with him, I flipped the final page over.
Gasps shot through the room like shrapnel. His fiancée covered her mouth.
My mother's knees buckled, and my father grabbed her arm to steady her. Relatives leaned closer, faces draining to white.
On the page was a name, a signature, a timestamp, and a statement. From the fire inspector. My brother crumpled.
No. How did you get that? That's confidential. Not when the company is under review, I said. And not when the inspector sent it directly to me an hour ago.
He shook his head violently.
This is a nightmare. This is a setup. None of this is legal. His fiancée snapped her gaze toward him, eyes blazing with betrayal. You didn't tell me you were under investigation.
He froze.
What? My mother whispered, voice cracking. Investigation. His fiancée shoved her chair back, stepping away from him like he was a stranger. You looked me in the eyes and told me everything was fine. I
I didn't want you to worry, he shouted. About what? She screamed. That you ruined the business? That you falsified documents?
That you lied to everyone at this table.
He covered his ears, shaking.
Stop, stop, everyone stop.
But there was no stopping now.
I tapped the inspector's statement once.
This confirms everything, I said. Your shortcut caused the warehouse fire. Your paperwork hid the violations.
Your missing inventory wasn't stolen.
It was destroyed.
He sagged into his seat, defeated. His fiancée stared at him with cold, hollow eyes.
You didn't just lie, she whispered.
You endangered people.
He didn't look up. He didn't have to.
Everyone already knew the truth.
But I wasn't finished. Not yet.
My brother sat collapsed in his chair, shoulders shaking, eyes fixed on the table as if staring hard enough might make the documents disappear. But they didn't.
They stayed.
Every page a spotlight on choices he'd never thought would be exposed. His fiancée stood several feet away now, arms wrapped around herself, trembling.
Tell me this isn't real, she whispered.
Tell me she's wrong.
He didn't answer. He couldn't. My father finally spoke, his voice low and defeated. You were given chance after chance. We begged you to stop.
We begged you to come clean. My brother lifted his head, tears streaking down his cheeks.
I was fixing it, he said weakly. I was so close. I just needed more time.
Time for what?
I asked.
To bury the mess deeper.
He glared at me, but the fire was gone.
Only exhaustion remained.
You don't understand, he said hoarsely.
I had to protect the business. I stepped closer. Then why, I asked quietly, did the board vote this morning, without you?
He froze. My mother gasped.
The board? My brother stared at me, shaking.
No.
You're lying. I reached into my bag once more and placed a crisp white folder on the table.
The board letterhead gleamed under the chandelier. 6 signatures lined the bottom. His chair scraped violently as he stood. No, N.O., this isn't possible.
They'd never vote without me. I'm the acting director.
Were, I corrected softly.
You were the acting director.
He blinked rapidly. They wouldn't do this. They can't do this. My father rubbed his forehead. They asked you to attend the meeting this morning.
You didn't show.
I had things to handle, he shouted.
Yes, I said, like meeting with your lawyer about the missing shipment and trying to convince the warehouse supervisor to rewrite his statement.
More gasps.
My brother's knees buckled, and he steadied himself against the back of the chair. His fiancée whispered, "Oh my God."
I opened the board letter slowly, revealing the first line.
Effective immediately, majority ownership has been reassigned. My brother choked out a laugh, a painful, broken sound.
Who did they give it to? Dad?
Mom? Anyone but.
He stopped.
Because I slid the letter across the table toward him.
My name was printed at the top.
He stared at it, lips trembling.
You, he whispered.
You own it. I nodded once. 51%, I said.
Legally.
As of 10:07 a.m.
His face crumpled.
You took everything, he breathed. Everything. No, I replied, voice steady, calm. You gave it away. The room went completely still.
But I wasn't finished. Not even close.
My brother stared at the board letter like the words were crawling off the page and sinking their teeth into him. His lips moved, but no sound came out, just a broken exhale. The kind you hear when someone finally realizes the ground beneath them is gone.
I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The truth on the paper did the talking.
Across the table, my mother clung to my father's arm. When were you going to tell us? She whispered. My father looked shattered, as if the weight of every warning ignored had landed at once. This morning, he said quietly, after the vote was finalized.
My brother shook his head violently. No, the board wouldn't do this to me. They wouldn't side with her. I lifted a calm eyebrow.
They didn't side with me. They sided with the company.
He opened his mouth to argue, but he stopped when he saw what I placed on the table next. A card. A small ivory business card.
The logo of the family company embossed at the top. My new title underneath. Chief Executive Officer. His breath hitched so hard his chest trembled. You.
He pointed at the card with a shaking finger.
You're the new CEO.
I nodded.
The board needed someone who wasn't under investigation, I said.
Someone who still had the trust of the clients.
Someone who didn't falsify documents.
His fiancée winced like each word struck her physically.
My brother grabbed the edge of the table, knuckles bone white.
This is a joke. This is a setup.
Where's your proof? Who gave you permission to see those files?
A knock echoed from the front door. The room froze.
His fiancée whispered. Who is that?
I didn't look away from my brother.
The person who delivered the second half of the file.
Footsteps approached.
The dining room door eased open. In stepped our company's attorney, holding a leather portfolio.
Half the table gasped. My brother staggered backward. No,
what is he doing here? The attorney nodded politely to the room, then addressed my parents. Apologies for interrupting. You asked that I stop by with the final documents as soon as the votes were certified. A strangled sound escaped my brother's throat. The attorney placed the portfolio in front of me. Everything is approved, he said. It's official. My brother stumbled into his chair, face hollow, eyes empty. You can't do this, he whispered. You can't just take my life apart.
I leaned forward slightly. There's one more thing, I said. The entire room leaned in. My brother's voice cracked.
What else could there possibly be? My brother's question, what else could there possibly be, hung in the air like smoke from a candle someone had just snuffed out.
I didn't answer immediately.
I let the silence press down on him, heavy and suffocating.
Then I opened the attorney's portfolio.
A single document sat on top, clipped neatly, stamped with a seal so official it seemed to radiate authority.
My brother swallowed hard.
What is that?
The attorney cleared his throat.
Mr. Caldwell, this morning, following the board vote, we were instructed to notify the appropriate regulatory agencies. My brother blinked slowly, not understanding, or refusing to. Notify them about what?
The discrepancies, I said.
The missing funds.
The falsified reports.
The warehouse violations.
His knees buckled. He grabbed the back of his chair to keep from falling. No, he whispered.
You wouldn't. You didn't.
The attorney continued, unflinching.
And per requirement, we also submitted the preliminary evidence to law enforcement.
The room erupted. My mother gasped, hand flying to her chest. His fiancée took a step back, trembling. Even the youngest cousins stared, wide-eyed, mouths open. My brother shook his head furiously.
You filed charges against me.
You're turning me in?
I held his gaze. I didn't file anything.
He froze.
The attorney stepped in. The board did. For a moment, everything went still. Even the quiet hum of the heating system seemed to vanish. My brother let out a sound, half laugh, half sob. You're lying. They would never.
They already did, I said.
He stumbled forward like a man struck by an invisible blow, knocking a plate to the floor.
Glass shattered at his feet. You think you're the hero, he snarled.
You think ruining me makes you strong? Strong?
I repeated. No.
I stepped closer. Necessary. He lunged suddenly, rage exploding through him in one animalistic burst. People screamed. My mother sobbed. His fiancée shouted, Stop. But he was already moving, coming straight toward me. My father and two uncles surged forward, grabbing him by the arms, dragging him back as he thrashed and kicked. You took everything from me, he roared. You think you're better than me? You're nothing without me. I didn't flinch.
I didn't step back.
I simply looked at him, calm, steady, unbroken. This was your doing, I said softly. All I did was bring it into the light. His breathing turned ragged, almost wheezing. Then, over the chaos, I spoke one final line. Thanksgiving was your idea, remember?
He stopped struggling. His eyes widened with a fear so raw the room went silent. This wasn't just exposure. This was consequence. And he knew what was coming. But he didn't know the last part. Not yet.
My brother stopped struggling the moment the weight of that sentence hit him. Thanksgiving was your idea, remember? The fight left his body all at once, like someone had cut the strings of a marionette. My father and uncles loosened their grip, but they didn't release him. No one trusted what he might do next. His chest rose and fell in broken, jagged breaths. He looked ruined. Not because of what I'd revealed,
but because he finally understood it couldn't be undone. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he whispered. I know, I said. That's the problem. His fiancée stepped forward, voice barely audible. Is it true? All of it. He didn't look at her. Didn't look at any of them. He stared only at the floor, shaking. She wiped her tears and removed the ring from her finger. She placed it gently on the table, next to the inspector's report. I can't be part of this, she said. Then she walked out without another word. My mother sobbed quietly. My father stood frozen, torn between heartbreak and responsibility. The attorney cleared his throat. Law enforcement may reach out to you tonight or tomorrow morning, he said to my parents. The board will cooperate fully. My brother winced like the words were physical blows. I looked at him, really looked at him. This wasn't triumph. Not satisfaction. This was grief. Grief for what he'd chosen. Grief for what he'd become. Grief for what he'd destroyed with his own hands. I didn't want this, he said, voice cracking. I didn't want to lose everything. You didn't lose it, I replied gently. You let it slip. And then you pretended not to notice. His eyes filled. For the first time all night, he looked young. Small. Human. What happens now? He whispered. The question wasn't for me. It wasn't even for our parents. It was for himself. A question he should have asked months ago. My father finally stepped forward. He placed a trembling hand on my brother's shoulder. What happens now, he said softly, is that you face the consequences we protected you from for far too long. My brother squeezed his eyes shut as the truth settled over him. There was no doorway to escape through. No lie large enough to hide behind. No shortcut left to take. I lifted my coat from the back of my chair. I'm going outside, I said quietly. I need air. The room stayed silent as I walked out of the dining room, past the shattered plate, past the cold turkey, past the relatives still whispering in stunned disbelief. Outside, the night air struck my lungs like something clean and new. I inhaled deeply. For the first time in years. I felt light. My father joined me a moment later. He didn't speak. He just stood beside me, steady and present. And I realized something. My brother hadn't been the only one hiding from the truth. We all had. But tonight it finally stepped into the open. I looked back toward the house, the warm glow spilling through the windows. He stood up at Thanksgiving to take everything from me, I said softly. And that's the night I finally took my life back.